CNN's on right now. It's 2:03 West Coast time PM. May 30th, 2024. Jury reaches verdict in Donald Trump trial. Shift in demeanor inside the court, Jake, of course, as we watched Trump and his attorney kind of just chatting with each other as they were initially inside the courtroom, laughing, smiling. Now, when the judge got on the bench at about 4:30 and said that yes, there was indeed a verdict here, the entire demeanor in that room shifted, and Trump grew quite serious. His son Eric Trump briefly walked out of the room and then returned and is sitting behind him. I should note Eric Trump is the only family member who is going to be in the courtroom when this verdict is read. It is basically entirely locked down inside that room. That was the plan all along. We can now hear helicopters circling overhead as they are also planning to increase security precautions because court officials had wanted to make sure that it didn't get crazy outside of the courthouse once it was announced that there was here a verdict in this case. Our reporters inside the room say there's a few more court officers also in the room. There's usually 4 or 5 standing as members of the public have been inside that courtroom, just a few, but mainly reporters as well. Caitlin They're now Collins. Waiting for the jury to come in after 6 weeks now in its 7th week where they have been hearing all this evidence, now deliberating for about 10 to 11 hours roughly inside that room, also listening to jury instructions yet again. I've got Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes here with me. And Paula, obviously, no one knows what this verdict is going to be, but they have spent the last 30 minutes or so filling out the court forms that they're going to bring in there and then read aloud inside that room.
Yeah, historic documents that they've just filled out. Both sides of this case, the prosecution and Trump's defense attorneys, have framed this as some form of election interference. Trump has argued that this case was brought against him, it's about 8 years old, because they want to prevent him from getting into the White House. Now, we're going to go back to Jake, as I understand it, because the verdict is going to get underway in just a moment.
All right, thank you so much, Caitlin Collins, and we're all just trying to speculate here if this is a mixed verdict. What might that mean? We still do not know, of course. It could be 34 votes of not guilty. It could be 34 votes of guilty. The jury is right now entering the courtroom to render their verdict on these 34 felony criminal charges against the former president of the United States, Donald John Trump. And Tim Parlatore, you have represented President Trump in the past. First of all, are you surprised that a verdict came so? I mean, to me, it seems very quickly. We were, I thought the Weinstein jury was out for 6 days. I'm not comparing the two, but that was another high-profile case. This was not even 12 hours.
Right. This is a very complicated case. I mean, I do think it's interesting that they told the judge that they have a verdict, but then asked for additional time to fill out the form.
You agree with Karen's assessment?
I do, and I also think that they did that because, they would normally just say, we have the verdict. I haven't seen where they've asked for additional time, but I think they were looking at the clock and saying, hey, if we don't tell the judge now, he's going to send us home. We want
the jurors and the jury alternates. There are 6 alternates as well. All 18 of them are now in the courtroom. Tim, please continue. I'm sorry.
So I think that they wanted to let the judge know, hey, don't
dismiss us for the day.
Let's get it done today. I'll tell you, right now, this is the most stressful moment, and when they read this verdict, the majority of defendants that I've represented at this moment, it's so pressurized, they can't hear. Their ears shut down. And especially when you have this many counts, you're going to have one of the lawyers, taking it down.
And a complicated case.
When they're done, and they say this is the verdict, Donald Trump is going to turn to his lawyers and he's going to say, what did they say?
So the judge just turned to the jurors and said, we received a note from you signed by your jury foreperson at 4:20 p.m. 4:20. Here come the verdicts. We have the verdicts. Okay. Count 1 is guilty. That is a felony charge. Count 1, falsifying business records. Count 2, also guilty, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 3, guilty, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 4, guilty. That's another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 5, guilty. That's another falsifying business record in the first degree felony charge. So that is 5 felony charges that Donald Trump has been found guilty by this New York jury. We still have 29 other felony counts to go, but that is 5 guilty verdicts. verdicts by this jury when it comes to comes to felony charges of falsifying business records in the first degree in service of another crime, and that crime would be covering up the Stormy Daniels hush money payment. Count 6, guilty. So that is 6 charges. Count 7, guilty. That is another charge. Count 8, guilty. That is yet another charge. 8 out of 8, he has been found guilty. Count 9, guilty. So that is 9 out of 9. Count 10, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 11, guilty. Another felony charge of falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 12, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 13, guilty. Another felony charge of falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 14, guilty. Count 15, guilty. That is 15 out of 15 so far. Count 16, Donald Trump found guilty. 16 out of 16 when it comes to falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 17, guilty. That is from a July 2017 payment to Michael Cohen. Count 18, guilty. That is another felony charge. Count 19, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 20, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 21, 20 and 21, both guilty. This is for an August 2017 payment. So is count 22, also guilty. Count 23, guilty. Also guilty. Donald Trump found guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 24, guilty. Another felony charge. Count 25, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 26, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 27, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 28, guilty. Another felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 29, guilty. Felony charge, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 30, guilty. Felony charge, falsifying business records. Count 31, guilty. Falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 32, guilty. Falsifying business records in the first degree. Only 2 counts left. Count 33, former President Donald Trump found guilty. Falsifying business records. Count 34.
Holy shit.
Guilty. Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. All 34 are felonies. Donald Trump has now been convicted of 34 different felony crimes by a jury of his peers in Manhattan. 34 felony charges for former President Donald J. Trump, convicted of 34 felony charges having to do with falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. An unbelievable moment in American history.
God bless it.
The jurors
Holy
are now
Lord.
being asked about their agreement with these charges, and they are responding yes. Trump has a frowned expression on his face as the verdict reading is completed. He is not moving. The former president of the United States, now a convicted felon, having been found guilty of 34 felony charges by a jury of his peers in Manhattan, New York. The court officer is asked why the party wants the jury polled. Trump attorney Todd Blanche says, yes, this is when they go around and ask each juror if they agree with what has just been read by the 4 birds, and the jurors all have straight faces. They are now being polled. Karen, when they do this, do they ask each juror for each charge, for each count, or would they simplify it and say, each of the 12 jurors, do you agree you convict him on all 34 charges?
In this particular instance, because it was a clean sweep of all 34, what the judge would do is he would say, juror number 1, you just heard that there was just a 34 count, all guilty. Is that your verdict? And they would say, yes, sir.
So the jurors being polled right now, they all said yes or yes it is, and they are each going, as you just said, Karen, juror number 1, is this your conclusion? Yes, it is. Juror number 2, is this your conclusion? Yes, it is. And the alternate jurors, Judge Merchan said we couldn't have done this without you. He thanks all of the jurors very much for their service in this case. Trump is turning to look over the jurors as they're being polled. The former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, a convicted felon Fallon 34 times over, found guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree by a jury of his peers in Manhattan minutes ago. Anderson?
Jake, as you said, it is a remarkable moment in American history. I'm here with Caitlin Collins and CNN's Paula Reed.
Just keep it on CNN
Covering
for
this,
right now.
obviously from the beginning. The judge has said that he will meet privately with all the jurors just to thank them again, but that he cannot actually discuss any parts of the case with them. What happens now, Paula Reed?
So this is going to be a long road. Even before this jury took their seats in that courtroom, the Trump team was preparing their strategy for appeal. And the first argument they're probably going to make is that they believe their client never would have been able to get a fair trial in Manhattan. They tried to move this out of Manhattan, arguing that he wouldn't get a fair shake. And they've tried to rack up every possible objection already. Attorney Todd Blanche moves for an acquittal of the charges, notwithstanding the verdict. Certainly something that any defense attorney would do in this circumstance. But they're thinking, they're playing a long game here, and they're thinking of every possible objection. The strategy was described to me as death by 1,000 cuts, and they've been racking up every objection, every possible constitutional question that they could raise before an appeals court. So I guarantee you, I'm told this will be appealed, and it's a long road, the appellate process.
You know, Caitlin, it's so interesting. In the last 24 hours, there have been some supporters of the former president who said, they thought maybe there was a rogue juror, maybe there was a juror who seemed to smile at or look over at Donald Trump or look over at parts of the team or some of the acolytes, the politicians who were in the room. They sensed perhaps there would be one holdout. There wasn't a lot of hope among the Trump team from all the reporting, and others that there would be an acquittal, but their hope was that there was some holdout juror.
And what a remarkable moment this is, because Donald Trump himself always thinks that he can somehow sway everyone. I mean, that's why he says he often wants to testify in his own defense when he speaks with people, when he speaks with voters, and for him to sit there and listen to all of these jurors. And Donald Trump looked on as every juror confirmed that, yes, this was their finding, that they did find him guilty on all 34 counts. It is remarkable in and of itself, and is something that Donald Trump has never experienced before in his life. And the idea that even he was holding out hope that some of these jurors would be on his side, some of these jurors would help deadlock this, or at least lead to an Allen charge where they had to be told by the judge, try to come to a unanimous decision here, is remarkable. And one thing I'll say is, Trump has been falsely claiming that the jury did not have to come to a unanimous decision here. They did have to come to a unanimous decision on all of and they did on all of these charges. They found him guilty on every single one. Yes, his attorney is moving and saying that Michael Cohen, without his testimony, Donald Trump would not have been found guilty on all accounts. He is saying that the defense believes Michael Cohen committed perjury on the stand. Those are all issues that they'll take up. But for this moment in and of itself, for Donald Trump's trusted attorney and personal fixer for so many years to have been at the center of this case that did ultimately lead to make him a convicted felon while he's in the middle of a presidential campaign is completely uncharted territory, even for Donald Trump. Even with the bravado that you'll see from him, the appeals that you'll see from his legal team, he did not want to be here, and now he does find himself here.
This is also now Donald Trump, who rightly would be proud of being a former president of the United States. On his record forever in history, he is a convicted felon, of course, unless it's overturned on appeal or somebody pardons him. Trump attorney Todd Blanche asked for sentencing a date in late July. We should also note that jurors did not look at Donald Trump as they left the courtroom. Every time I was in the courtroom, I assume you were in the courtroom too, we watched jurors come and go. I never saw jurors look at Donald Trump. I'm not sure if you did as well. Trump was sitting at the defense table without moving. That's been the reporting now all during the reading of the sentence. As the foreperson was reading each guilty verdict, it was said that he had a frown on his face, but that he was not moving.
And this is a jury of his peers, I should note, that they will try to say, well, he would have never gotten a fair shake in New York. Obviously, Trump built his business in New York. He was defined as a New Yorker when he ran for president. Even though he's a resident of Florida, that's still how he's seen. Some of these jurors followed him on Truth Social. Some of them said they had no opinions of him at all. Some of them, one of the jurors described him, she said she thought he was selfish, but they all said they could put their political beliefs aside and listen to the evidence here. And clearly that is what they were doing, because just this morning they were asking for headphones to listen to the evidence. They wanted the judge to reread the instructions to them. It's clear how seriously they took this responsibility and these findings that they have come to.
And speaking of politics, the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, who brought this case, he was in the courtroom for the verdict. When he brought this case against former President Trump, there was a lot of scrutiny, questions about whether he was bowing to political pressure. And right now, Todd Blanche talking about Trump's other legal cases. He, of course, faces 3 other criminal prosecutions, and he's arguing that Trump's legal team needs to prepare for a 3-day hearing in Florida scheduled for late June, likely related to the classified documents prosecution. But this is validation of Alvin Bragg's decision to bring this years-old case, a historic case that among Trump's...
Sentencing date is set for July 11th at 10 a.m. Donald Trump is leaving the courthouse. Courtroom, let's watch.
I mean, he went from hours ago in a room across from where he's about to exit, eating pizza, laughing with his team, moments later to find out that he's been found guilty on all 34 counts.
You see Emile Beauvais there, Boris Epstein, one of his top advisors.
That's Stephen Chung, whose back is to us. He's a campaign spokesperson. Alina Habba, Trump's other attorney. They're clearly huddling. This is what they did the other day when Trump was about to come address the cameras. They sat outside the courtroom and kind of talked about it.
The prosecutors told the judge that there is no bail. So sentencing will be now in July. Let's see if
Donald Trump and Todd Blanche are talking. That's Jason Miller, who you can see in the back with his glasses on, and Eric Trump is the tall one right there, deciding what he's going to say to the cameras.
You know, it's interesting to hear the rhetoric that Trump has used against Judge Juan Merchan for, I think, anybody witnessing this inside the courtroom. He seemed to bend over backwards to try to be fair to all the parties in this. The Trump team has to file any motions by June 13th, and the prosecution must respond by June 27th.
The judge certainly did everything.
Here's the former president, now a convicted felon 34 times, about to address reporters.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win. Because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now. From prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists. And they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why is your brother so convicted felon?
Are you going to drop out?
Donald Trump not talking details of the case, but attacking as he has pretty much every day, consistently and often late at night.
Oh boy.